Hello, I'm Katie Joe. This is the Sovereign Soul podcast where we talk about being mentally, financially, and spiritually sovereign. Now, this is kind of a segue, a part two, if you will, to the last podcast that we talked about sovereignty, where I discussed the law of tithing. And is this a law of spirituality or is it not? And I wanted to use also the word of wisdom. Now, if you're not familiar with the word of wisdom, I was raised in a conservative religious society, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or otherwise known as Mormon religion. Now, this, if you live the doctrine, is much more than where you go on Sundays. And I talk about this in my upcoming book, Sovereign Soul. So for me, which was a really, really wonderful childhood upbringing, I must admit, it wasn't just something we did on Sundays. It dictated the way that we dress, the clothing, and the modesty standards based on by them, by the way, of that. And then it also was what we ate, what we drank, what was allowed and what wasn't allowed. Gotta move my legs out. It also discussed, like for us in our family, we were at church services 3 hours every single Sunday. We were at choir practices on Wednesday nights. I did what was called young women's or youth groups as a teen, which was phenomenal. I loved those classes and those events and service projects. On the weekends, we were often doing service projects for the widows or the sick or the elderly in our community. If there was snowstorms or rainstorms or yard work, if there was somebody sick or injured, we would bring over food. We would our whole church or parish, known as a ward, would coordinate that, like for example, all of the women checked on certain other women. So you'd be assigned your three people that you check on once a month, and the men were the same, called home teachers, and they would check on certain families every single month, and they'd go over and they'd meet with them and they'd offer some guidance and spiritual guidance. As a family, for us, we wore very modest clothing, so always t-shirts, never open shoulders. Shorts or skirts had to be down to the knees. Piercings, you couldn't have more than one piercing in your ears if you were a female, and piercings were not encouraged with men. No tattoos, no belly shirts, things like that. So it was everything from the way we ate, from the way we drank, from the clothes we wore for us too. And this is the guidance. We didn't listen to heavy metal music or to rock music or watch PG-13 movies or rated R movies. We didn't curse. But that extended to words like but, gosh, couldn't talk about sex, couldn't talk about beer. I mean, obviously, the obvious curse words, things like that. So, what I loved too with the holidays coming is we would do tons of holiday things as a parish or ward, and we would take care of everyone in the community, and everybody would chip in, and we do food and we do parties, and it was just an amazing lifestyle to be raised with. But when I say that this is where I come from, it wasn't something you do on Sundays. And so trying to convey that when I'm expressing the culture of it, which was a wonderful culture in many ways, also has a lot of things that are not. So we're going to dig into what's called the word of wisdom. And when we're talking about sovereignty, it's asking yourself, what is the concept here beyond the rule? Because so many people will blindly follow the rules, and then when they leave a religion, they've thrown all the rules out because they say none of it was true. I'm going to just throw the baby out with the bathwater. So the word of wisdom, and I'm not going to quote it here because I don't have it in front of me, but it's essentially to eat and drink in moderation, as well as to abstain from coffee and tea and cigarettes, pipes, tobacco, and liquor, alcohol, beer, hard liquors, and things like that. Now, side note, this is super weird because Brigham Young, who's the second prophet of the LDS, had a whiskey company. That's an aside. But let's come back to center on the word of wisdom. There's a huge exodus right now of a lot of people in the world, this isn't specific to Mormon religion, that people are leaving structured religion. They feel like it's oppressive and they feel like it's been corrupted. And honestly, that's true. Just like most big businesses or big corporations or big things, it's really challenging for there not to be corruption somewhere in something like that, because this is a human condition. It's not about the religion or the corporation. It's about humans and how humans can be and their own personal faults that can then be enabled through a system. So when we look at the word of wisdom in this system, or people throwing out the rules, they're throwing out religion, they're often just throwing everything out. And I see a lot of people that are just going crazy and falling into addiction and other things. So the word of wisdom, based on what it says, it just says moderation. And then it does say to abstain from these certain things. And I'll see a lot of, especially people in this community in Utah, who are now leaving religions, and they're jumping into a lot of different types of chemical use, because it's like, well, we've thrown it all out. There's nothing wrong with it. And I'm not here to say there's anything wrong with it, but we're going to take this in the concept of sovereignty, and we're going to ask the question, what is the concept here? Is this a spiritual or sovereign truth? So the sovereign truth would be to have moderation, and then to abstain from caffeine, liquor, or addictive chemicals. Is that wise guidance? How many of us would tell our children that? How many of us protect children who don't know better? I have a 5-year-old who doesn't know better. And if he gets that red dye number 5 in his candy, he is like a ping pong ball off the walls. So is this wise guidance? He is not allowed to have caffeine. And certainly he's not getting liquor or chemicals that are hallucinogens or addictive. Heck no, because it wouldn't make sense for his system. We can see that. We can see that causes an effect where he's not in his mastery. He's not able to control himself. It's so obvious with a beautiful soul innocent, right? We can see that. Another thing about moderation, Halloween was just a few days ago. And we are saying, no, you cannot eat that whole bag of candy tonight. You can have a few pieces a day. A few pieces a day is moderation, and that's okay. And if you want to have a few pieces today, that's just fine. You still get to have your healthy meals. You still need to eat your fruits and vegetables. And it's not a matter of you can have candy if you've done that. It's that you also need to be implementing these healthy things. You also need to, you can't be on video games all day. You also need to be doing your basketball, your soccer, playing outside. So when we look at the word of wisdom, where some people will take that and they'll just go, this is the hard rule, never, 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 never. And then they throw it out and now they're trying everything. Look at the concept and the sovereignty outside of that. And while we have more resilience as adults, as we have more temperance as adults, it's so clear in a young child how these chemicals affect them. They are affecting us too. And I'm not here to say don't drink soda, don't drink coffee, don't drink tea, don't drink. I'm not here to say any of that. What I am to say is take the concept and look at that. Because if you look at health experts, you look at the science, this is really good guidance. And from another standpoint, from another angle, did you know, I believe the number was 60% of domestic violence incidents or violent incidents, assaults, and things like that have a chemical involved. So even though I look at this 5-year-old and we say, okay, if this kid has caffeine, he's insane. Or if this kid, whatever, we think that we're above this as adults. Are we? Based on those statistics, if we look at the drunk driving or the driving under the influence, or we look at Utah is insane for drug addiction. We're one of the top in the entire nation. It's just pharmaceutical. It's just the doctor wrote you the note. So it's okay because they won't do alcohol or other things. And so we look at this. Are adults actually above this? Are we more guided? Are we more aligned? I think the answer is no. I would say look at the sovereignty for the self. Look at the sovereignty of this concept is outside of religion. This has nothing to do with control and boxes. This guidance is good guidance, a word of wisdom for my life. Am I bad, sick, and wrong if I have a glass of wine or a drink of alcohol? No, I don't think you are at all. But I also think that it's good guidance to be aware and to keep a core of this is the core of life that I live. So beyond the box into sovereignty, simply ask those questions and integrate it for yourself. What do I think? What do I witness? What do I witness as truth? What are the facts in the world? What is this truth law concept that I was taught? And how can I look at this and integrate this into my life? So, thank you.